My friends, today I'm not here with any theories. Pay close attention. Today I'm here to show the predictions coming true one by one right in front of you. And yesterday, here on the channel, I told you if my reading is correct, the next chapter of this story won't come from the Gulf, it'll come from the Red Sea. Does anyone remember that? Write it in the comments. Less than 24 hours have passed since yesterday's live stream, and early this morning, the Houthis in Yemen hit two Saudi Arabian oil tankers in the Red Sea with missiles and drones. One of them caught fire and loaded ships started turning around in the region. The Red Sea lit up exactly as I warned here on the channel yesterday. And there's a second confirmation, and this one is even more impressive. Yesterday, I told you that the attacks on the Aqaba area down in southern Israel in Jordan had a hidden target, the radars. I noted then that it was just my interpretation without official confirmation, but today that confirmation came directly from the enemy himself. The Revolutionary Guard released an official statement about the shots fired at Jordan, stating clearly that the target was the radars and the American interception systems positioned in that region. They themselves confirmed here what I said yesterday on the channel. And there's a third point, which is my oldest warning of all: oil. Since the very first day of this round, I told you, watch the price of a barrel of oil because that's what can change the game, since the barrel went over $90.27. Guys, Iran's weapon is starting to work. The 100 mark is just around the corner and it could go past 100 at any moment. So stick with me until the end, because today the video has two parts: the predictions that came true and the escalation that both sides announced in the last few hours, both in words and in actions. And at the end, I'll tell you what standard they're using to measure the next operation, because it says everything about the scale of what's coming. Welcome everyone. As you arrive, please hit the like button. It's important for the channel. Live from Israel, where everything is happening. And let's start here with the Red Sea, because this front has officially emerged, right? It appeared once again officially just this past night. The spokesperson for the Houthis claimed responsibility for the Saudi oil tankers hit by ballistic missiles and drones as punishment for breaking the naval blockade they imposed against Saudi Arabia. One of the ships was hit near the coast of Saudi Arabia, and the Saudis themselves admitted this, saying that the ship caught fire at the front, but there were no injuries. Well, at least that's what they're saying, right? I know it was much more serious than the official statement says, and it almost sank. And Iranian sources give details about the other tanker, which was hit about 70 kilometers north of the Yemen border with a capacity of 500,000 barrels and had left the Saudi port of Yanbu. And here, let's just pause for a minute so you who are just joining us can understand the geography, because without this, the rest doesn't make sense. And for that, we need to open the map. Let's go to the map here to show the Red Sea. This is it, guys. The Houthis are here in this area, Sana'a, and here is Saudi Arabia, okay? All this part here is Saudi Arabia. You need to understand what I'm saying, okay? The Red Sea is this corridor here, this water corridor between Saudi Arabia and Africa. See these two sides here? Saudi Arabia on one side and Africa on the other. And at its exit down here, right at the bottom part, we have the narrowest point that's right next to Yemen called Bab el-Mandeb, okay? The Houthis are the ones who control this strait. It's basically them. Every ship that leaves the Red Sea for the ocean passes through this funnel, and whoever controls this funnel controls the route. And now let's add what came before with the Strait of Hormuz being squeezed, right? The strait here on this other side is squeezed because the Americans don't let anything Iranian leave here, nothing Iranian enter, and whoever isn't from Iran gets hit by Iran. In other words, it's also closed. This had already changed, folks. It had already changed. It had turned into a war zone a long time ago, but Bab el-Mandeb hadn't, okay? In other words, it was a way for oil to escape. It was a way for Saudi Arabia to ship its oil out through the Red Sea. The Saudis were pumping their oil through a giant pipeline that crosses the country from end to end. Here, look. It follows more or less this route here. It crosses the entire country from end to end, from the east all the way to the port of Yanbu on the Red Sea. And from there, it was shipped to the world, folks. It left from here, look, and went towards the Suez Canal and then out to the world and to Europe. This was their plan B, and it worked for weeks. And now the Houthis have closed off the escape route as well. It's Iran, through its proxy in Yemen, squeezing the world's second oil artery. Both exits squeezed at the same time. Guys, this is very, very serious. It's really serious, honestly. And look at the immediate effect of this. According to the Houthis, 10 vessels obeyed the warnings and turned back to avoid breaking the blockade. The international press confirms at least two giant oil tankers, one heading to India and another to China, turning back halfway through their journey. And a navigation analyst, there are navigation analysts here in the region, summed up the market atmosphere by saying that for now, there are only a few ships. But the message is that the ship owners are taking the threat seriously. And there's one more thing. The situation has also reached the ground, folks. It didn't just stay up there, okay? Reports indicate ground clashes in southern Yemen between Houthi forces and Yemeni forces loyal to Saudi Arabia, with dozens of casualties early yesterday morning, folks. Another war starting there. Or maybe it's the same war, right? In other words, it's not just about ships, it's a full front forming both at sea and on the ground in the region around Yemen. And a new player has also entered this story, one that almost no one expected: Pakistan. Look at that. You know, were there not enough players in this whole Middle East story? But now another one has joined, folks: Pakistan. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Pakistan declared that any hostile act against ships flying the Pakistani flag or against the country's maritime interests will be met with a response. And they also criticized the blockade for threatening regional security and freedom of navigation, saying they are especially concerned about threats to ships engaged in legitimate trade with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And in addition, there are reports that the Pakistani Navy has deployed naval assets. Pakistan is here. Let me show you where Pakistan is. Pakistan is down here, okay? Here, look, Pakistan. In other words, they would have also deployed naval assets, warships to protect the routes of Saudi ships. Let me be clear, as a lot will circulate about this in the coming hours, especially as the rest of the world tries to understand what happened overnight. And for now, there is a formal warning and a reported movement, but there is no announced date nor any official confirmation of an escort operation underway. Okay? They never said they'd escort the ships, not from Pakistan or anywhere else. If they're already en route, no one will confirm it. It seems they left Pakistan and have arrived, but their location and purpose are unclear. And look, here's a detail that says a lot too. So far, not even the American fleet that patrols this region has announced any escort operation in response to the Houthi blockade. In other words, for now, the commercial ships are on their own in those waters, and that's exactly why they prefer to turn back rather than risk the crossing. In other words, it's even narrower. It has become extremely dangerous. This is a mark of what happened yesterday, but take note, because it's significant, folks. It's very significant. The next country with a little over 200 million inhabitants, I think, is Pakistan. It's about that, with huge armed forces and atomic weapons. Pakistan is putting its name in this dispute alongside Saudi Arabia, and that's not by chance. It's not just sympathy for Saudi Arabia, not at all. There is a signed document, and it's very important. In September last year, Saudi Arabia and Pakistan signed a mutual defense agreement in the capital, Riyadh. And the main clause is this: any aggression against either country will be considered aggression against both. So pay attention. Pay attention to what this means. It's the same logic as that famous article from NATO. If you attack one, it's like you've attacked all of them. And there's also the part that no one can ignore. Pakistan is the only Muslim majority country with nuclear weapons, guys, atomic weapons. When the agreement was signed, a Saudi official described it as a comprehensive agreement that covers all military means. They said that, and the Pakistani defense minister declared days later that Saudi Arabia would benefit from Pakistan's nuclear umbrella. The official text was never published, no one has ever seen it, and Pakistan has never formally confirmed this atomic protection. So everything is left up in the air, and that's intentional. No one knows exactly how far the commitment goes, and it's precisely this uncertainty that serves as a deterrent for Saudi Arabia. Or at least it did until yesterday, right, folks? Until yesterday, when the Houthis started attacking Saudi Arabia. Now, add that to what's happening today. The others are hitting Saudi ships. And Saudi Arabia has a signed pact with a nuclear power that says aggression against it is aggression against both of them. Do you understand why Pakistan's warning today isn't just empty talk? Do you get that? There's a signed agreement behind this, so they're obligated to react. And notice the change in tone as well, because that's also important in the Red Sea crisis 2 years ago when the Houthis were already targeting ships. The Pakistani Navy made a point of saying they weren't there to help anyone against the Houthis and were only protecting their own routes. And now the message is different because there's a signed document. Now they specifically mention trade with Saudi Arabia and promise to respond when the country changes its tone. This shows the game in the region is changing, the board is expanding, and that's how it is. Marco Rubio himself, the American Secretary of State, commented on this new front with a phrase that literally puts the responsibility on Tehran. He said it was Iran that got the Houthis involved in this conflict and that he hopes they stop their attacks. And he also said, let's see what happens from now on, we'll watch from afar, right? Is that what he's saying? Hit the like button, guys. Go ahead and press the thumbs up. I know the news is very important, but your like is even more important so this information can reach more people. Because in the end, we're the ones who are going to pay the price for all of this. Gas prices have already risen in the United States and will likely increase here in Israel on the first of the month when adjustments usually happen. Gas prices may rise where you are too. And the message from Marco Rubio behind this statement is very clear. If the Houthis keep going, the response will go after the boss, not just the employee. In other words, the United States will once again target Iran. That's what I've already said here. The whole problem is the regime, guys. If we solve the regime issue, if the regime is overthrown, all the fronts stop. They stop because it doesn't have any money. Here's a detail that concerns us for safety. Interceptors, where? For Eilat residents? Is that your question? But I heard the sound of interceptors, so the interceptors were fired there in the Eilat region, in our far south. Because of the risk of something spilling over to the Israeli side, so it was used. Israeli interceptors were launched from there towards the missiles that were fired, launched from Iran to intercept them, out of fear that they might spill over, fall, or miss the target and hit the city of Eilat. So it was only used as a precaution. Remember the corridor I showed you yesterday? I'll show it to you again. This corridor is very important, guys. Should we pull up the planes? There, this one. Look, while we watch the airplanes too. This corridor here is extremely important, guys. Aqaba. Look over there, Aqaba. Look, there's a plane over there that landed. That's an American plane. It landed at Aqaba Airport. Aqaba, pay attention. American plane here. And over there is Eilat here. On one side is the Israeli border, on the other side is Jordan. It's exactly this corridor, my friends, that's heating up right now. Now let's go to the second confirmation, the radar one, because it also deserves the details. This morning, the Jordanian army intercepted, not early yesterday, intercepted 4 more missiles and 6 Iranian drones that entered the country's airspace. Afterward, the Revolutionary Guard issued a statement about the launches. They claim to have taken out of operation the radar of the American system, THAAD, the anti-missile defense in Jordan, as well as another radar, an interception battery, and another Jordanian radar too. Pay close attention, everyone. As always, the score they claim is just a claim without independent confirmation. And of course, the United States won't confirm or say what really happened. And even less so will Jordan, right, everyone? You know my filter, but you need to use yours too, okay? Not everything they say is true, but these have always been the targets. But notice that when it comes to what doesn't need confirmation, it's the choice of the target. They declared in an official document that they are targeting the radars and interception systems in Jordan. And yesterday, for those who remember, for those who watched the video until the end, you already know, right, guys? This was my reading yesterday. I talked about this several times, especially in the city of Aqaba. I mentioned it several times. And today, it's their official statement. The blindness strategy I've shown you recently has gone from analysis to the enemy's official line. You just need to understand the bigger plan and you'll know what's happening here before it even happens, guys. And understand why this changes things. Also understand why this makes the situation more serious. While this was just an analysis, it could be treated as a hypothesis. But now that the regime itself declares the radars as targets, every country in the region officially knows that the radars in their skies are on the list. That's it. That's a fact. This forces everyone to react, reinforce, redistribute, protect, and that's exactly what's starting to happen now. Because look at the response from the other side. 12 British fighter jets landed in Jordan. They left from Cyprus, from the island of Cyprus. They left from here. Look, there's a British base here on the island of Cyprus, on the Cypriot side, right? Cypriot, on this side of Cyprus. This other side here is Turkey, okay? Turkey also conquered this part of the island of Cyprus. Just so you understand, there's a map here, a division right in the middle. This side here belongs to Turkey and this side here belongs to Cyprus. Cyprus is totally independent. And there's a base here near Lima, Limassol. From England, yesterday 12 British fighter jets crossed through here, look. And they went to Jordan to help protect the airspace of the kingdom of Jordan. Do you understand what's going on? Iran shuts down the corridor's radars and the West rushes to fill the gap with planes. It's a real-time struggle for control of that sky. So when you start watching, just like in the 40-day war, that American plane, let's see if it's around here now, which is kind of actually, it's not kind of. It's a radar plane that's always flying around here with the disc on top. It's used exactly to detect and try to cover this gap that's being created with the destruction of these radars. Iran is literally clearing the way here. And the way isn't just for Israel, folks. This route also leads to Europe. Okay? Stay tuned. The missile must go through here to reach Europe, meaning it has to clear this area to threaten Europe with missiles. Based on what you've seen, I'm sure I deserve your like. So hit that like button and get back to the video. And subscribe with the notification bell on, that's important, because these predictions that came true today started here in the live streams from the past few days. So those who follow along get ahead. But it's only for those who watch until the end, because a lot of these comments I make at the end of the video. Now let's talk about oil, which is the third warning, right? Let's put up the third warning here. Shall we check the real-time price of oil? Let me pull up Brent here. Let's see what oil is at right now. Oil is going up, guys. Oil is going up. It's already reached 97. Let's take a look here. Take a look. Oil. Just this period here. Take a look at the chart. It went from around 70 something and already jumped to 90 to 98, guys. 98, 98.59, that's 9. The price of oil at this exact moment, in other words, the barrel, okay? This is the Brent barrel, the highest level in weeks, going up more than 4%, 4.8 in a single day, guys. And why is it going up like this? Exactly because of what I explained to you here. The market has already realized that now there are two choke points being squeezed at the same time. Hormuz and Bab el-Mandeb. That's the reason, guys. That's the real reason. Not just Hormuz. It's just the ships building up outside. Like the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, which is down here. Here, look. In other words, there is now a blockade against Saudi ships in this region. We're probably seeing movement from other ships. Not from Saudi Arabia. And probably not from Israel either. And the other one is here too. Since the first day of this round, I told you too, the day this number here jumps, the game can change. It's jumping, guys. It's going up. And here's my take too, with both of its sides. For Iran, this is the old bet finally showing signs of life, scaring the world through their wallets to force the Americans to stop, and they're starting to succeed. But there's also the other side of the coin to move the needle, period. Iran had to set two seas on fire and bring Yemen into the game. And every extra dollar per barrel also increases global pressure on the regime itself. Because the whole world starts demanding a solution. And everyone already knows that the whole problem is right here, in Iran. This is positive for everyone, so keep an eye on the number 100 because that's the turning point. It could go over today, guys. It could hit 100 today. If the barrel breaks 100, everyone around the world feels it in their wallet. And then the pressure comes from two places at the same time. On one side, on Trump, with more expensive fuel in the United States. Right in the middle of the midterm elections. That's exactly what he can't let happen. On the other side, on the regime, the more the world feels it in their pockets, the more the major powers move to force an end, and the less Iran can keep dragging this out. And here's what matters to you on the other side of the ocean. Higher oil prices worldwide mean more expensive fuel for everyone, folks. For everyone. And food gets more expensive right after, because everything you consume is transported by truck. This is when this story leaves the international news and hits your monthly bills. And ours, mine, yours, all of us. Now let's move to the video's second part. The escalation. In the past few hours, both sides have raised the stakes like never before in this round. Pay attention. Just a reminder that they were talking roughly 12 days ago, right? 15 days ago, they were sitting almost at the same table chatting and saying that everything was fine and that there would be peace soon. First, let's talk about the words. Do you remember Trump's equation from yesterday's live stream? If a ship is hit in the strait, a bridge or a power plant goes down in Iran. Do you remember he said that yesterday? So the guard, the Revolutionary Guard there, the commander of the Revolutionary Guard's Air Force responded with a counter equation. He said the following: if the United States hits power plants and bridges in Iran, Iran will cut off all electricity to the Gulf countries. Pretty strong, right, guys? Equation against equation. You take down my power plant, I turn off the lights in the Gulf countries. And the president of the Iranian parliament, who also leads the negotiation team, Ghalibaf, said the phrase that sums up the regime's doctrine at this stage. Pay attention. The equation is simple. Either everyone or no one. In a region where we don't sell oil, no one will sell oil. If our security is not guaranteed, no infrastructure will be safe. And the only way there can be security in the strait is without American forces present. We have already said it again and again. The strait will never go back to what it was before. Period. Heavy. My friends, I don't see a solution here except a real American invasion or a coalition of countries to overthrow this regime. Either everyone or no one. That's what he's saying. That sentence explains the tankers catching fire in the Red Sea. And there's also a part here that almost no one has highlighted. He said that there is only security in the strait without the presence, without the American presence, folks. In other words, the price the regime is demanding to restore navigation is not money or sanctions. It's the withdrawal of the Americans from the region. This is asking for the impossible, and those who ask for the impossible aren't seeking an agreement, they're buying more time. Remember, he needs to prolong this conflict. They need it until the midterm elections. If they defeat Trump there, they've won the war. The Iranian foreign minister responded with the eye for an eye doctrine. Any attack against Iran will receive an equivalent response, and anyone who provides any kind of support will also become a legitimate target. And then came the response from Secretary Marco Rubio. He said the following: Is Iran's doctrine an eye for an eye? He asked. President Trump's policy is a head for an eye, and Iran will pay a very heavy price. And Marco Rubio also gave an inside look at the diplomacy. He said that Iran begs for a deal every day but backs out every time and never closes it. That's why Trump is escalating the threats, and the price Iran pays will grow night after night until they come to their senses. In other words, Marco Rubio still believes that at some point an Iranian will raise their hand and say, let's sign the deal, right? That's what he's waiting for. They're not yet expecting to overthrow the regime. But notice what this is confirming, folks. What Trump himself admitted yesterday. The negotiation table and conversation exist, but the Americans say the regime keeps coming to the table and walking away without resolving anything. And Trump also capped off the day by sharing a headline that says he ordered the military command to open the gates of hell after the American casualties. And he also reiterated the figure he's been increasing throughout the year, right? We already know that. And now he talks about more than 52,000 Iranian protesters eliminated by the regime itself. And just look at how that's evolved, right? In February, in an interview, he mentioned 32,000, and now in July, he says 52,000, and he made a point of saying it could be even more. And here's my opinion. And my opinion is, I believe it was much more than that, guys. Look, the opposition says it's over 80,000, okay? This isn't something from the past, it's not a closed chapter. Every day there's someone or many people being eliminated over there. Young people, protesters, political prisoners. Every day there's an execution happening there in Iran. And just this week, the regime eliminated 2 protesters, one of them just 19 years old, and a human rights organization warned that another 10 were in line to be eliminated this week as well. That's why the number never adds up, because it keeps growing. Every day it grows a little more. And now let's talk about actions, because talk is cheap, right? What happened in the last few hours was real. The money, there were 2 votes on the same day, and it's important for us to separate the two. First, the House approved the annual defense budget, a package of $1,150 billion. Over there in the United States, folks, that's a lot of cash, it's a lot of money. The second one, the House approved a budget plan of $95 billion, and this one is specifically aimed at funding the confrontation with Iran. Within it, more than $70 billion go directly to this operation. Who still thinks this operation is ending tomorrow, folks? Just look at that, people. The House just approved $95 billion for this war. And this second one barely passed, we could say. It almost didn't go through, right? A 2-vote difference with all the Democrats against it and some Republicans too. The chairman of the Armed Forces Committee defended it by saying that for the first time in 40 years, there is a budget that recognizes the real cost of American deterrence. And on the other side, the Democratic leader in the House accused the Republicans of taking food out of the mouths of children, the elderly, and veterans to support what he called Trump's military machine. And there's also a number that explains why this fight is so tough. Over there, a gallon of gasoline in the United States has gone back up to over $4. Americans, tell us how much a liter of gasoline costs now. Oil almost 99, wrote Nunes. That's right, it's going up, it's going up. I think it will surpass 100 by day's end. You remember what I said here and about oil a few minutes ago, right? Yeah, it's reaching Americans at the gas pump. And that doesn't go over in a midterm election year. Guys, they're really worried about this over there. Any cent that goes up in American gas prices, they don't care about the rest of the world. They don't care about conflicts on the other side of the planet. They don't understand and can't think ahead. 10, 20 years ahead, they think about right now. I want to know my gas price right now. If it increased, I won't vote for you. Now it's going to the Senate, all that funding for the war, but the message is already clear. Congress is fueling the machine to keep it going. The war machine. 2, the men. The Wall Street Journal revealed that the United States is sending special operations forces to the Middle East. More forces, okay? A lot has already arrived here, along with more fighter jets, heavy aircraft, and medical teams. Here's the detail, folks. Medical teams and support equipment. Pay attention to the detail about the medical teams. Nobody deploys a field hospital for a small operation, folks. No one does that. A field hospital for a ground operation. Basically for that. Of course, it's important to have it, obviously, but not like this. Third, the weight. It was confirmed that the Americans used this week, for the first time in this round, the B-1, one of their large long-range strategic aircraft against targets in Iran. And for you to understand what this means, this is the aircraft made to cross continents and drop a huge load of weaponry all at once. It's not the everyday aircraft for this operation, okay? It's not the one we're always seeing. It's the aircraft you use when you want to send a serious message. And the minister there, actually the deputy from Iran, said that the United States is using weapons that were kept for World War III. He said exactly that. That it's the first time the United States is using weapons in Iran that, in his mind, were meant to be used in a third world war. And there's one more thing. The United States informed Israel that it intends to intensify its attacks in the coming days using those heavy aircraft. Fourth, the benchmark. And here's what I promised you at the beginning. A security source revealed that preparations are underway for a military operation broader than Operation Lion's Roar. For those who remember Operation Lion's Roar. And here you need to understand the reference because it's what gives the scale of this thing. Lion's Roar was the name of the previous operation. That one lasted 40 days. You remember how big the operation was, right, guys? Huge. 40 days of continuous fighting. The biggest confrontation this region has seen in recent years, in the last decade. We haven't seen anything like this in decades. So pay attention to what the source is saying. What they're preparing now is bigger than what happened in those 40 days. It's not bigger than what happened back in the 12 days. And it's not bigger than what's happening. It's not bigger than everything, guys. The 12 days back in 2025, these 12 days now, and bigger than the 40 days too. And fifth, the sign that governments give when they know something big is coming, the evacuation. England withdrew their diplomatic teams from Iran. They evacuated yesterday, and the British Foreign Ministry warned citizens in the Middle East, prepare for the possibility of cancelled flights throughout the Middle East. Do you remember what we talked about here yesterday about the French diplomats being intimidated in Tehran, that they were interrogated? So, France took a beating and England pulled their team out before getting thrashed. So when embassies empty out, especially the British one, it's because someone knows something is going to happen, folks. Someone knows something important. Remember when Trump said just a few days ago that the new British Prime Minister had authorized the use of British bases? Remember that? It starts to add up. The information fits together. And before we wrap up here, two quick notes to complete today's picture. The first is about the 12th night, which was lighter than the previous ones. The main targets, a border crossing between Iran and Iraq where there was a Revolutionary Guard post, a Revolutionary Guard border checkpoint. And again in the Bushehr region, in the south, where reports say that a power plant next to the atomic facility there was hit. And Iran, as usual, responded, we already know where, right? In Kuwait. The second item is about the mountain, the well-known Pickaxe Mountain. Iranian authorities talked about it through an Arab broadcaster. And first, pay attention to a curious detail, folks. They referred to the place by another name. They used a different name. They called it Mount Siro and not Pickaxe Mountain. The regime even avoids the nickname that the world adopted because the nickname became synonymous with atomic hideout. But what matters is the content of what they said. And check out this maneuver. They said that those who claim there is a nuclear facility there are Israel and the Mossad. That Israel is pushing the United States toward escalation and that if the mountain is hit, there will be a response and Israel will not be immune. In other words, a direct threat against Israel, right? From the Revolutionary Guard. You get it, right? Yesterday, they denied that there was any activity inside, and today they're already preparing the ground to blame Israel and target Israel if that place is forcibly opened. In other words, if any bomb falls in that region. First they deny it, then they find someone to blame, the usual playbook of the Revolutionary Guard. And Marco Rubio was asked about the nuclear deal with Saudi Arabia. Just a second. I'm a bit under the weather today. Look at that. And Marco Rubio was asked about the nuclear deal with Saudi Arabia. The one with the fine print that almost nobody reads, right? But we went over this yesterday. He answered that any deal of this kind will have oversight mechanisms to ensure it never turns into a nuclear weapons program. The 90-day period in Congress will test that promise, folks. Will it pass in Congress? And that's where I wrap up the day. The 3 warnings I gave you in the last few days all came true on the same day. The Red Sea lit up, the radars became targets officially and declared by the Revolutionary Guard, and oil prices are soaring. And both sides escalated at the same time. Equation against equation, an eye for an eye against a head for an eye. Billions were approved for the United States to keep this war going. Special forces are on the way. Embassies are being evacuated, and an operation is being redesigned or designed to be even bigger, which is even larger than the 40-day one. I don't know the exact day of this turning point, folks, but I do know one thing. Trump doesn't have much time to solve this. The midterm elections are almost here. Gasoline has already gone over $4 over there. And nobody wins an election with voters paying a lot at the pump and seeing American casualties rise. In other words, the clock is ticking against Trump. And when you're in a hurry, you act fast. And there's also a detail about the calendar. As I always point out, folks, the financial market closes on Friday. In Israel, it closes around 11 p.m. In the US, that's also 11 p.m. Big moves usually don't happen right at the market open, as those familiar know. Because no one wants to trigger a market crash for free in the middle of the trading session. And there's one more thing, and you can check this one too. You can check it yourself. Pay close attention to everything the American government has said recently. Analyze each statement. They aren't random, it's all connected. Trump talking about the gates of hell and the elimination of 52,000 people. Also talking about the number of soldiers who fell in other wars compared to this war. Peter Hegseth saying that Iran has never been so weak. Marco Rubi saying that the price will rise night after night. Congress approving billions. Embassies leaving. All of this together has a name. It's about preparing public opinion. Each of these statements serves to prepare the average American for the next step, so that when it happens, no one is surprised, no one asks why. Because it was already mentioned before, right? The statements are a psychological preparation, guys. That's how you prepare people for a major confrontation. And they're doing this right in front of you every day. So I'll tell you what I believe after the market closes this Friday, guys. I really believe it. The chances of things heating up here increase a lot this Friday. And I'll go further. I think our summer here is going to be much hotter than usual. I'm not even talking about Israel's heat, which is already crazy. It'll get much worse. But before I go, here's our Hebrew word of the day for you to write down. The expression is shagat ari. Shagat ari. It's exactly as it's written. Shagat ari. It means the lion's roar. That was the name of the 40-day operation. And now it's become the standard, right? Because the next one will be even bigger. What's coming is supposed to be bigger than this Shagat Ari. So remember this expression because it's going to come back and probably show up in the next few days. And I'm here straight from Israel, straight from the Judean mountains, keeping an eye on every movement, every flight, every decision that comes in the next few hours. And when the next piece lands on the board, I'll come back here to explain it to you, putting it all together one by one in a way the mainstream media doesn't do for you. So subscribe once again if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet. Enable notifications, share and send to your family group. Thank you, Granhai, for the super sticker. Thank you, Joe Massaro. Thank you, Rosen. Guys, this will be a quick live since I have a cold. I'll return tonight with another live and more updates, as more will likely happen today. And I'll bring more information. Long live Israel. Hugs to all the friends of Israel and see you in the next live.